swear to God, I've spent the last several months of my life thinking that I'm living in a delusion, that I'm going through literal and unironic psychosis. And we'll get to that, I promise. But first, hello. Welcome. I am Simon. I'm here to talk about Game of Thrones. Now here's the thing. I know that essentially maybe like 1% of my subscriber base actually cares when I talk about my television obsessions, and I don't care. This channel is for me. This channel is for me to have fun. I don't make any money, so I'm gonna talk about whatever the fuck I want to, okay? And I need to talk about Game of Thrones, because here's the thing. I'd never seen it prior to around 6 months ago. And then I started it with the bestie, and then we got to season 5, and then we finished season 5. We were like halfway through season 5, and she was like, I can't do this. I need you to finish this without me. I can't do this. So I did. And I finished Game of Thrones, and I feel like I'm going legitimately crazy. And like, there are several reasons for that, and we are going to talk about it. I did also plan on ranking characters in this video, and we will also do that. But first, I just need to talk about it. Okay, I just need to sit down and talk to essentially a piece of technology, but I just need to talk through my feelings because I feel like I'm going crazy. Because here's my thing with Game of Thrones. I don't think Game of Thrones is very good. I'm gonna say it right here, right now. If you're someone who like loved the first few seasons, I'm so sorry for you. I didn't like it very much. I didn't hate it. It is far from the worst television show I've seen. Far from the worst television show I've seen this year. That was even like a critically acclaimed television show that I've seen this year. Far from the worst. But like, every day, I would sit down with the bestie, or every day she came over, I would sit down with the bestie, and we would watch Game of Thrones, and I would feel like I'm a crazy person because I'd be like, I don't get it. And maybe that's just me, right? Maybe I've seen too much of like, the cinema kind of television, like The Sopranos, who's joining me today, like Succession, like Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. Maybe I'm just too into those. That, like, by comparison, Game of Thrones is just like, it's fine. But, like, it's not even that it was fine. There were, at several points, I was like, this was the show. This was the show that had the world in a chokehold. I don't get it. I don't see the vision. Right? That was me for, like, seasons 1 through 6.5. Season 6.5 and 7 is actually pretty good. Like, I'll say it. It's not great by any means. I would not consider Battle of the Bastards one of the, like, 100 best episodes of television I'd ever seen. But, like, it was pretty good. It was compelling. I liked it. And season 7 is good. And then I got to season 8. And I could have pulled up the text, but I'm not going to. The concept is there. Halfway through season 8, at, like, season 8, episode 2, I texted the bestie. And I was like, I think that the reason society hates it, like to say that Game of Thrones season 8 is bad, you have to assume that seasons 1 through 7 were great. And I was not that person. So my theory for myself was that I was going to finish Game of Thrones and I was going to be like, it's fine, right? Like I was going to get to the end of season 8 and I was going to be like, when I saw Lost, right? Like I watched Lost, people hate the ending of Lost. I thought the ending of Lost was fine. I didn't think it was fantastic. I thought it was fine. So I felt like I was going to be that again. Right, wrong. I swear to God, seasons 8, episode, what were the last 2 episodes? 5 and 6? There are 6 episodes. 5 and 6. I thought I was losing every ounce of psyche that I had, right? Like, I was going crazy in ways that I had never been about television, right? Because, like, famously on my channel, I made, like, 4 or 5 videos about The Handmaid's Tale and how it was making me crazy, and I experienced different levels of insanity regarding the show, because it was really, really bad. I believe my state and my abilities really came to a head, like everyone else, when Bran became king. I was ready to throw things, right? I was ready to throw both hands and, like, physical items. I was watching on my phone. I remember this so vividly. I was watching on my phone because I was like, I just gotta get through this show. Because I was on the last episode. I was like, I can do this, right? Like, I can get through this last episode. I was on the verge of, like, quitting. I was so close to being like, I can't do this. But I was like, no, I have to finish. So I was in my kitchen. I was making lunch. And I was watching it on my phone. And it was like that scene where they were all gathered around to pick who's king, and I was like, I should probably pay attention. So I paused what I was doing, and I picked up my phone, and I watched this scene. And then Peter Dinklage turned to Bran and was like, you should be king. And I was like, you're joking, right? Like, someone's gonna raise their hand and be like, that's a joke? This is the real king. But no. No, it was not a joke. That was reality. Or I guess Game of Thrones canon reality. I have never been simultaneously disappointed, underwhelmed, and violently enraged by a single plot device, not even plot device, by a single plot choice in my entire life of watching television. Anyway, now that we've established that I could not stand the ending, can I talk about why I didn't like the first few seasons either? Because I really didn't. Everyone in my life, because I would be like talking to people and they'd be like, what's up? And I'd be like, oh, I'm watching Game of Thrones. And they were all like, okay, season 5 is where it gets like really good, right? So for the first 4 seasons, the first half-ish of the show, I was like, okay, it gets good at season 5. It gets good at season 5. I watched The Red Wedding and I was like, it gets good at season 5. And I will say, parts of the show, I was talking to someone at work about it actually, and I was like, parts of the show were things that like I knew were going to happen. Like, everyone knows The Red Wedding is a thing, right? So like, it's a cultural experience. I accepted that I was going to have certain spoilers when I started watching Game of Thrones 15 years after it aired, right? So like, I knew Jon Snow wasn't gonna die when Jon Snow died because he was in season 8. Like, I knew these things. So there was that at play, but it was also the fact that I feel like there was no need, right? I was talking to the bestie about it a lot because we both had similar thoughts on the show, where it was like, I feel like in an average show like The Sopranos, a show that objectively has a very large supporting cast, not as large as Game of Thrones, but like a sizable cast, there's still meat to chew on for the important characters, because there are more important characters, right? The problem is Game of Thrones had like 18 important characters, and The Sopranos has like 5. So for the 18 important characters, and you had 10 episodes to do that. So there was just not enough time dedicated. I swear to God, this show made me crazy, and I do want to watch it again for one purpose. That purpose is, I feel like I, and I alone, am capable of properly sitting down and making a plot recap video. I have visions for how I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to share those visions now, but I do think it would be a fun concept. But I feel like I need to sit down and explain the plot, if nothing else so that I properly understand what happened. And maybe there are the people like me who never watch the show and were like, I wonder what's going to happen, and they're going to watch a random bitch on the internet talk about it for hours on end. Anyway, my core thoughts on Game of Thrones is simply that it's fine. It's very well acted, it's very well directed, it's very impressively made, right? Like, I understand why people would watch the show and be like, this is cool. I don't quite understand why they watch it and were like, this is the greatest show of all time, but I understand why they watch it and were like, this is a cool show, right? Like, I'd tune into it every week if it were airing in real time, right? Like, I'd be intrigued by it. I would not be fanatical about it. That's my thesis on Game of Thrones. I think, as a whole, for its time, because I feel like there weren't, the only like incredible show that I really remember airing at the time Game of Thrones was massive, like the late 2010s. The only show that I think about that I remember being like, this was a moment of a show, is Better Call Saul, right? Better Call Saul, frankly, deserved the world, and it got dust, but whatever. It's just, I feel like it was its own, like, Game of Thrones, to me, was so massive because there was nothing else. There was nothing else you were going to tune into. Like, the other big show that I remember airing at the time was Homeland. And I've seen the first 4 seasons of Homeland. And I'm just going to say, I understand why Game of Thrones won those Emmys over Homeland. I do. Because, God. But as a whole, it's a fine show. I guess that's I've said it like 8 times. It's a fine show. Okay, ranting is done. Now it is ranking time. As always, I did steal a tier list. I'll put it in the description. I borrowed it. You put it on tiermaker.com. You can't be mad that other people are going to use it. So I borrowed it. I'll put it in the description. I did also rename the tiers, and I took one out because I could only think of 5. So we're going to run through them. Let's run through the tiers. Also, in my defense, I stole it because if you put a gun to my head and told me to name every important main character in Game of Thrones, you'd have to shoot me. There are bitches from season 1 that have not been relevant in years. I don't remember them anymore. Anyway, let's run through the tiers now, okay? Top tier, actually, we're starting at the top. I'm genuinely compelled. These are the characters that like I actually liked, that I enjoyed when they were on screen. Like, they would be on screen and I'd be like, okay, I'm locked in again. Like, I'll pay attention to this scene, right? Next is just a good character. These are the characters where I either get why they're in the story and I like what they bring to the narrative, or I just like them as a character. I feel like as I look at this list, there are a couple, specifically women, that are going to be in this tier, exclusively because I think they're fun. Okay, next is inoffensive. These are the characters that are fine, that I don't love, but I'm willing to tolerate their presence. Next year's I Hate You and I Hope You Die. I frankly could have changed it to I'm Glad You Die, because as I look at this, there's a lot of bitches here who do die. So, I Hate You, I Hope You Die is the characters that I hate, that I cannot stand, that I don't like, but they are not the bottom tier. The bottom tier is literally Why Are You Here? Right? This can go in a couple ways, right? These are the characters that either A, were way too important for no damn reason, or B, literally bring me nothing. No joy, no rage, not in an inoffensive way. In a way of like, what are you doing here? I lied. I added a new tier. This is the I don't know this bitch tier. These are for the characters that I can look at you for like 5 straight minutes and be like, I don't know who this is. Which means they inherently are less important than the Why Are You Here people, or they were simply less important to me. Because there are unimportant characters that I do remember and do feel things about, but like, then there's the ones that I don't remember. And we're starting off with this man. I feel like he was the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. I feel like that was his deal. I don't actually know, and I don't care enough to check. Next, let's do what is probably the most obvious ranking, Mr. King Joffrey. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw something at some point that said he was the most hated character in the history of television, and I do believe that. That boy, frankly, because he was like 17 at the time, I believe, he really showed up and said, I'm gonna be the most despicable human being to ever walk this earth, and he did it miraculously. He did it so well that I do feel like we need to look into him as a person, because how are you that diabolically evil with such ease, right? Like, are you okay? Do you have humans chained up in your basement? Have you fed people to dogs? Speaking of people who fed people to dogs, frankly, I do hate him, and I do hope he dies, but I feel like this man outstayed his welcome by, like, I shit you not, 3 seasons, okay? He would have been like a fun little one-off villain for like a 5-episode run, but no, he stayed, and he stayed, and he stayed, and he was more and more and more like the main villain of like 50% of the plot, and I was just sitting here like, you don't matter. Why are you here? What do you bring me, right? Like, that's what I want from this man. What do you bring to the narrative that I could not already get? Because we would get to like season 6 of him, and he'd be doing some fuck-ass evil shit, and I'd be like, I know that, though. Like, I know that you're evil and torturous, and I know this. You don't need to show me this man as a fucked up menace. I know that, okay? I've known that for 3 seasons now. I don't need him here. Next we have Margaery Tyrell, and I'm choosing her entirely because I feel the need to be positive. She is a good character, and I mean this in 2 ways. One is that I do think she's like an interesting foil to Cersei when they were like doing that for like the 5 minutes they were doing that. But more importantly, she's played by Natalie Dormer, which is kind of all it took for me to imprint on her in a specific way, because I love Natalie Dormer. And I think she's amazing, and she's fantastic, and every time she was on screen, I was delighted with, like, 3 exceptions, and all 3 exceptions were, like, the weirdly sexual scenes with Tommen, which we will... You know, I'm actually going to talk about them now. I just think if I were a 30-something-year-old actor, and I walked on set, and they were like, we're gonna make you simulate a sex scene with a real-life human 16-year-old, I'd say no. Personally. Maybe it's my own lore and my own trauma and my own baggage and my own... I'd be like, actually, can we not do that? Like, I'd be very uncomfortable lying topless in real life in bed with a real-life 16-year-old. That would make me uncomfortable. That's the real world. We're living in their fiction, and in their fiction, I think she's good. Okay, let's fill in our other tiers. Robb Stark, inoffensive. He was hot. That was kind of the main thing he brought to the table. Is his love interest on here, actually? I think that's her. I'm pretty sure that's her. We're assuming that's her. I hated this bitch. I hated her so bad. Robb Stark was such an interesting character to me personally, and then this girl showed up. And his only plot point going forward was that he was horny for her. For like a whole season, that was his only plot point, was that he was horny for his either like healing girl slash whatever they were when they were fucking slash wife. That was all his plot was, and I did not care for it. I hated her. He's inoffensive. He's fine. Let's put someone in the top tier now. Arya Stark. I was genuinely compelled by Arya Stark. Arya Stark, I think, is one of like 2 or 3 characters that I liked through the whole show. Right? That at no point in their arcs was I like, I'm tired of you. I hate you, and I don't know what you're doing here. Like, at no point in my ranking would I have ranked her anywhere below, like, the second to top tier. Because she's good. She's fun. She's interesting. I like her dynamic with her brothers. I like her as this, like, violent soul. I liked her. I did like her dynamic with the Mountain, and I will say, I was looking at AO3, because of course I was, because I needed to know the lore for the show, right? I need to know what were the ships of this show. And I saw that Sansa was shipped with the Hound, and I will talk about that in a moment when I get to one of it. Is the Hound on here? Did they not include the Hound? That's fucked up. Anyway, we'll talk about it when I get to Sansa, I guess. But, like, I thought that Sansa was Arya, and I have other feelings about the Sansa Hound ship. When I thought it was Arya, I was appalled. I was horrified. That is, again, the real world. In their fiction, I actually really liked her. I just spent 5 minutes looking at this woman, and by 5 minutes, I mean like a good 40 seconds. I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. Y'all can judge me. Is there anyone else while I'm actually in this tier that I cannot recognize them as a character? Oh, the Hound is here. Guys, I found the Hound. The Hound is here. He is redeemed. I don't know who this man is either. Anyone else? I believe that is it. Anyway, let's do another bottom tier, or a why are you here tier. Why is she here? Why was she here for so long? Like, here's the thing. I do actually think narratively she fulfilled a purpose, and I do think it's really fucked up what Cersei did to her, but like in a fun way. In a way that I think is good for Cersei, so I'm willing to accept that. But, like, she was here for so long. She had so many scenes that she was in, and I was like, why are you here? You don't bring anything. Like, I feel like part of why she was in those, like, late-stage war scenes, when it was, like, Daenerys and, what's her name, the Grandma Tyrell, and, like, that crew, right? When they were, like, a crew, and she was there, it was just so supposed to show that, like, Dorne was on Daenerys' side. But, like, Dorne didn't do anything. So why is she here? Okay, this man has been staring at me from the first spot this entire video, so I am gonna do him. This man, I hate you and I hope you die. Here's my thing with him. Maybe it's that I missed something in my watch of the show. Like, maybe I took a really long break. But I feel like this man left in, like, season 2 or 3. Like, he disappeared to go do whatever task he was given to by Joffrey. And he came back after the wedding as, like, Thanos. Right, he came back in trying to serve what Joffrey's actor was serving. He tried to be the most villainous man ever. I'm like 99% sure he changed his voice and the way he spoke, and it set my teeth on edge. It made me want to scream and throw things. I do also hate him as a character, mind you. I think he is a bad character. I do not think he is well flushed out. Like, there are other characters, wherever Varys is on here, I'm not finding him, I saw him earlier, wherever Varys is on here, Varys and him, I feel like, fulfilled similar, like, niches, except for the fact that Varys is interesting. That Varys brings something to the table. This man just brought me anger. I need to calm down, I need to choose. Davos Seaworth, I loved that man. True fact, actually, as I was watching, I could probably find the text if I cared enough to prove my point, but you're gonna have to trust me. I unironically was watching, like, the season 8 finale, the series finale, and I was like, they should make Davos Seaworth king. Unironically, I think of the options at that little council thing, he would have been the best. Definitely the best choice. Definitely should have been king. Definitely, he was so fun. And the way he, like, trauma bonded onto what's-his-name's daughter was so cute. And I do wish he got to kill that demon. Actually, where is she? I just saw her. Where is Missandei? Not Missandei. Oh my god, that's a different woman. Is that Missandei? There are too many damn characters. The Demon Witch. Inoffensive. That's where I'm gonna put her. We're talking about her. She can be now. She's inoffensive. I think she's fine. I liked what she brought to the narrative at certain points. My main thing is, like, she decided to pull, like, the biggest power move. She fucked what's-his-name, and then birthed the literal shadow demon to kill his enemies, and then never did it again. Right? Like, I have to assume that's something you're capable of more than once. Like, that can't have been a one-off ability. Right? So, like, that could have been really useful at other points in the narrative, and I was sitting there, because I'd binged this show. I was like, just birth another Shadow Demon, right? Like, we can just do this again, round 2, we kill off Cersei or something, right? Like, there were points of the show where, like, a Shadow Demon assassin would have been really useful and really helpful, and they just acted like it was completely off the table. Okay, we talked about him. His name is Stannis. I keep calling him that, man. I did remember his name is Stannis. Why are you here? Why are you here for, like, 5 fucking seasons of this show? Why are you here? Why are you here for so damn long? Right? I feel like his whole thing, I'm only accepting of him because we got more Davos Seaworth because of him. That's my only reason. I was so tired of him by the time he died. And I get that he was supposed to, like, show in a certain sense, like, religious fanaticism and all that. But, like, we got that in the same way, like, a season later. So, like, at the end of the show, he brought me nothing. He delivered quite literally nothing except for one demon child that killed one thing, like, it killed one of his brothers, and then did nothing else that I found interesting until he burned his daughter alive. Speaking of religious fanaticism, let's talk about this man. Inoffensive. He brought something interesting to the table for sure. Like, narratively, it was a nice little shakeup after, like, 5 fucking seasons of just who's gonna be king. To, like, let's talk about cults. And let's talk about religious fanaticism. That was fun. That was a fun little mix. I do still think it's really funny that Cersei's endgame was just domestic terrorism. I think that's probably the funniest thing she ever did. But aside from that, this man was fine. He seemed smart. I did like the way that he, like, outsmarted Cersei. That was fun for me. Aside from that, inoffensive. I'm doing a twofer. I'm doing another twofer. Gilly and Sam. Here's my thing. Gilly did not need to be a character. Like, at all. Like, whatsoever. She could have been completely written out of the show and the entire narrative stays the same. Sam at least did bring some important stuff, so I do canonically understand, like, why he's here in the show. It's nice for Jon to have an oomph. Good for Jon. Unfortunately, the minute they, like, ran away from what's-his-name's farm and he got his own storyline, I locked in. And by locked in, I mean I locked in on that I didn't need him here whatsoever. Every time he would have, like, a solo story moment, like him and Girly Poo, I was just like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm not compelled by you. He actually is a nice guy. I was, like, a little bit compelled by him. I think he's sweet. And that was during, like, season 3. But by, like, season 7, when he was having his own storylines, I was like, why are we here? Why are we here? The only funny thing he did in his entire show run to me was when he stole the sword. That was funny. I did not like that he let his mom, or his dad, I mean, berate his whatever he is in Gilly, girlfriend, life partner, whatever they are. But, like, I didn't like that. When he stole the sword, that was funny. I feel like I need more positives in this moment. A good character. Is it, like, 70% because I wanted her and Daenerys to fuck? Yes. Yes, it is. But also, she was fun. She was cool, and she was hot. Okay, that's enough positive. Back to negatives. Theon Greyjoy. I really am debating between I Hate You and I Hope You Die and Literally Why Are You Here. I think he is unfortunately too important to be literally Why Are You Here, but I do hate him. I do think that he's, like, one step above Sam in the sense of, like, you did not need to give this man an entire storyline, especially because of who his storyline involved. For the most part, I didn't care for it. I really didn't. It was like 4 seasons of him being called a reek. I did learn something, actually. This is a real fact that I did learn. For starters, for those unaware, if you want to be really concerned about what was going on in the Game of Thrones fandom, the top Yowie, these two. We can get into that, but more importantly, did you know that Reek and Theon Greyjoy are different character tags on AO3? I want us all to think about that for like 5 seconds. And to think about how Theon Greyjoy is considered, according to the canon of the archives, a different person than Mindbreak Theon Greyjoy. You know what, let's do the other character that I, like, really truly cannot stand. Listen. If you've noticed a trend, it is that the Stark boy love interests do make me wanna vomit actively and vomit poison onto them. I can't stand them, and I couldn't stand her. At one point, like, her and Jon broke up and she fucked off, and I was like, good. Please let her not return. And then she did return. and then she did return, and I booed audibly. They were like the same episode too. It was a really sad day for me, but like she came back, and I was mad, and then she finally died. When she finally died, when his name is Ollie, I actually do remember that. When the kid Ollie shot her, I cheered with delight. Okay? I think that's the happiest I'd been watching this show, with the, like, sole exception of when Joffrey died. And, like, I didn't need her here. I didn't need her to be such an important character, but it was more egregious than a Why Are You Here? That, like, I needed her dead. Okay, I'm gonna throw in some inoffensives that I low-key do not think belong on this tier list, but they're here and they're inoffensive. So, the Wildling Man, inoffensive. The, like, face god guy, inoffensive. He was interesting. I liked the lore of his religion. I didn't care about him as a person that much. Who else is inoffensive and low-key should not be on this tier list? I just saw one of you. This man. This man, low-key, actually I'm putting him down here. I lied. I would have put him up a tier until they added in that he and Arya fucked. I was delighted in the fact that Arya was not sexualized by the show. Arya was like the only female main character that was not inherently sexualized by the show in some way, shape, or form, by which I categorized it as, if you were wondering, had a topless scene or had some form of sex scene. Okay? Only character. Until, like, halfway through season 8. And they decided to throw in a sex scene with her. And I wanted to vomit. I actually skipped it, true fact. I did skip her sex scene. I also skipped Brienne's sex scene, and Brienne of Tarth is not on this tier list, and that is a crying shame. She would also be an inoffensive. I did not care about her, but she is certainly a more important character than, like, any of these three. There was one more. This guy, I did also really hate him. Do I want to put it? No, he was inoffensive. I lied, I take it back. It's going to be a similar logic to the Arya Stark sex scene. When he and Daenerys started fucking, I wanted to get violent. Okay, I wanted to steal his own sword and, like, use it to do some chopping. I would have pulled a Ramsay Bolton, I swear to God. But, like, I think having a bunch of men obsessively in love with Daenerys is interesting. I think it adds to her character in, like, a weird way, but, like, in a way that works. Actually, speaking of, he is inoffensive, but, like, I don't care about him that much. Having, like, a weird harem of men that aren't fucking her... Jon Snow could have fucked her. Jon Snow and her fucking I'm fine with. Well, we'll get to it. But, like, the weird harem of men who are, like, freakishly devoted to her for romantic reasons, that was fun for me. I think we should have had, like, 6 more of them, and they just took turns being in scenes with her. Okay, while we're here, what other inoffensive characters are there? Bronn, I would have said he was a good character. I do unironically think that he was fun when it was, like, him, Peter Dinklage, and Peter Dinklage's whore, when they were in, like, season 1 or 2, when they were, like, at the camp. That was fun. That was a fun dynamic. I do think the two of them, like him and Peter Dinklage, did have yaoi potential. Unfortunately, apparently only I saw the visions for that, and Lord knows I wasn't going to write it. So that was disappointing for me. Who else is inoffensive? Robert Baratheon, honestly, is completely inoffensive to me. I did not care. I knew he was going to die, because I knew the whole thing was, like, a fight for the throne, and I kind of figured that he had to die for that to go down, so, like, that did make sense. Actually, we've done Joffrey, we've done Robert. Let's do Tommen Baratheon. He's fine. He is a fine character. The 16-year-old did a good job. I literally can tell you nothing else beyond that. We're going to pull out the other characters I have nothing else to really say about. Catelyn Stark, I actually did like her. Ned Stark is fine. I feel like I know the archives, again, really liked those two as, like, a married couple. And I think that was simply, like, a holdover of the fact that we didn't get a lot of them together in the show. And, like, I think because, like, Catelyn Stark we got for, like, 3 seasons, right? Like, we got to see her. We got to understand her. And I think she was a good character. Ned Stark we got for, like, 5 episodes. And I do believe, had we gotten, like, a couple seasons with him, I would have liked him a lot. Okay, the last character that I don't really have a lot to say about is... Listen, I know his name is Greywork. I've called him Louis the entire time I watched the show, okay? Interview with the Vampire is apparently on Netflix now. If you haven't seen season 2, I would highly recommend it. Anyway, he was a good character. I shit you not 95% because he was played by Jacob Anderson. That was, like, my entire reason for enjoying him. he did not bring much else beyond that, but he was played by Jacob Anderson, so, like, he's a good character. Okay, let's start off with Daddy Lannister. That is what I called him for much of my watch. I actually think he was a good character, right? Like, as far as, like, characters go, did I like the man? No, I did not. I also did not appreciate that I believe our introduction to him was him actively, visibly skinning a deer. Did not appreciate that, even in a little bit, but I do think he was a good character. I think what he brought to the show was really interesting and really fun. I don't love him. I think he was, like, our best actually compelling, like, powerful villain that wasn't a teenager. You know what, let's do his kids now, okay? Or at least the ones that are fucking. Jaime Lannister is fine. He is an inoffensive character. I do think the only interesting thing he does in the entire show is push Bran out a window. After that, I kind of lost interest. I say that like I had interest. I was never interested in him. But, like, he only really... I mean, he spent, like, a whole season in a cage. He spent, like, another whole season traveling with a blonde woman that I did not want him to fuck. Actually, can I talk about this for a second? Because, again, Brienne of Tarth is not on here, which is a crying shame, but she also would have been inoffensive. I saw this tweet that someone tweeted out. It was the bath scene. Okay, if you've seen Game of Thrones and you know the Jaime Brienne of Tarth lore, you'll know the bath scene. And someone tweeted out that bath scene. And was like, you know he's respectful of her because he's not staring at her boobs, he's looking her in the eye, right? And I had conveniently seen that exact scene, like, a week earlier, and I knew they were damn wrong. And I'm gonna take this moment, this is my time. This is, dare I say, the only opportunity I'm gonna get to be like, that is wrong, that is a lie, that is bullshit, because the entire scene, Brienne of Tarth is visibly uncomfortable that he's in the tub with her. It's a room full of tubs, right? There were, like, 10 bathtubs. He chose to be in the one with her after she not only was visibly uncomfortable with it, verbally said she did not want him in there. You cannot lie to me, right? I watched the show. I'm willing to live in their fiction, but I'm not willing to live in yours, okay? You cannot tell me that his respect for her is shown by him not staring at her boobs when he actively ignored her wishes, ignored the fact that she was visibly very uncomfortable with his presence in the tub naked with her, and he chose to ignore all of that and got in the tub. And you get their romance, I hated it more than any other romance arc in the show. Anyway, Cersei, I'm so sorry. Cersei is probably, like, the second most. There's at least 2 or 3 she is one of, like, top 5 most actually well-written characters in Game of Thrones. Cersei was compelling to me pretty much the whole time. She had a little bit of lulls in there, but, like, for the most part, I actually liked Cersei. I was compelled by Cersei. I do think she died in a really sad way. Like, not sad in the way that, like, the scene was sad. The scene was sad. But, like, by that point, I didn't fucking care. I was an hour deep into a Daenerys rampage. So I was just like, kill her off, whatever, anything to get this over with. But I feel like she needed to go out in a more iconic manner. Like, I'm sorry, that has been our villain in some form for the entire show. And you had a bunch of rocks fall on her. And that's how she died. Disrespectful. I frankly think Drogon should have, like, busted through a window and bitten her in half or something. Speaking of Daenerys, and actually Drogon is in this picture. Daenerys, where on God's green earth do I want to put you? I am going to put her in a good character, because I do actually think she's another one of, like, actually well-written characters. And here's the thing, okay? Because I was looking at reactions to Season 8, Episode 7, not Episode 7, Episode 5, specifically, and that's the one where she, you know, goes on a rampage and kills what I have to assume is a couple 100,000 people. And here's my thing. When she started doing it, I was like, I get it, okay? I get that she's grieving and she's making bad choices. And then it just kept going for, like, 45 more minutes. I think had her destruction of King's Landing been, like, 10 minutes, 15 at the most, and we intercut the other stuff that was going on in that episode with that, it would have been fantastic. And then we could have cut out a whole episode, actually, now that I think about it. But anyway, they just drew out her rampage so much that by the time it was over, I was like, I need her gone. I don't care what happens. I knew she died at the end, because someone did tell me that Daenerys died. Like, someone years and years ago, before I was watching the show, I knew Daenerys died at the end. So I was just like, can we get this over with for the love of all that is good on this earth? Anyway, I probably would have put her in I'm Genuinely Compelled. At the start, even like at the halfway point of season 8, I was genuinely compelled. And here we are. Guys, I have fantastic news. I remembered who this woman is. This is Peter Dinklage's whore! Great news. She was inoffensive. I'm glad I remembered who she was. I don't remember her name. But I do remember that he choked her out at one point, and that did make me cheer. Anyway, let's talk about Varys now. That's Peter Dinklage. Let's talk about Varys now. I actually think Varys was also a good character, entirely because I do think he had, like, the best motivations. I unironically at one point was like, they should make Varys king. Like, halfway through season 8, I was like, maybe they'll make Varys king and that would be fun. They didn't. I do think that he did nothing wrong. I think that he was actually in the right the entire show, and I think that his monologue about his gash was one of my favorite scenes. Okay, we're doing the Hound next, and the Hound is also inoffensive. However, I'm taking this time to talk about the ship of him and Sansa. You need jail. You need jail time for that. If you wrote for that ship, I need you to go to therapy. I need you to go to, like, intensive therapy, because that's the scariest thing I've ever heard in my life. That ship made me so wildly and completely uncomfortable. Just the knowledge that it existed made me actively nauseous. It made me want to throw up. It's just... She was canonically, like, 15. He's gigantic and in his, like, 30s. No. Absolutely not. That is disgusting. If you... I mean this with all the disrespect. If you wrote that ship, I lost 80% of any respect I possibly could have had for you. Anyway, Sansa Stark is the only character that I'm going to put in the top tier that I genuinely would have ranked lower at the start. Every other character I'm putting in the top tier, by like the end of season 1 or 2, I would have put them in the top tier. Other than Davos Seaworth, because I don't think we met him or like really knew him at the time, but like the other ones that are up there, because I haven't finished, there's going to be one more up there, but like the other characters that are up there, I do actually think have always been great, right? Sansa Stark was a slow burn, and I loved it. I actually think if I rewatched the show now, I would like Sansa 72% more. That's my prediction. 72% enjoyment increase. Even the parts of her that piss me off so bad, aka everything with her and Joffrey when they were, like, betrothed, that made me real mad. But, like, I think Sansa Stark at the end being Queen of the North, I cheered. I also wanted her to be queen. I think that would have been the right choice, frankly. If we're going to talk, like, an actual, like, high-born person who could have taken the throne and done, like, an actual good job, and I think has earned it and would rule well, Sansa Stark every day. You know who I would not have picked to rule the fucking, I guess now 6 kingdoms? Bran Stark. And here's the thing. Bran Stark, up until the season finale, would have gone in the inoffensive tier. And now I hate him. Now I hate him and I hope he dies. His act of simply being chosen as king made me madder than I've ever been watching television. I actually do believe that's possibly the case. And I just think it ruined his character. Because here's the thing. Bran was fun. Maybe not fun. Bran was fine for the first, like, 5 seasons. I did like when he had a twink best friend. That was fun for me. That was enjoyable. And then Twink Best Friend died, of course, and Bran became the Three-Eyed Raven or whatever. And then he became just, like, monotone and boring. And that did ruin all of my enjoyment for him, and I would have put him in inoffensive. And then he became king, and now he needs to die. Jon Snow, unironically, never compelled me in this entire show. Jon Snow, to be fair, he did spend, like, a season and a half with an arc that made me violently enraged. And then another season with an arc that made me really annoyed, which was him fucking his aunt. But aside from that, Jon Snow, to me, the entire time, because again, I watched Game of Thrones like 7 years after it ended. I knew Jon Snow was an important character. Okay? I knew that the entire time. And the entire time I would be watching Jon Snow scenes being like, this is an important character? This is the man. This is the man that is an important character. Because he literally at no point really delivered anything that made me want to like sink my teeth into it, that made me want to dig deeper into him. He would show up in a scene and do his job and then walk away and I'd be like, okay, what's next? Okay, closing out the show, or closing out the video, we do have what is, I believe, considered the best character in Game of Thrones, which is, of course, Peter Dinklage, Tyrion Lannister. There's a reason why he is the only actor that got an Emmy for the show. Not that because the others are poorly acted. I actually could tell you that, like, at least 3 people in the top tier other than him deserved an Emmy for their performance. But I understand why he was the only one, right? Like, if we had to pick one actor who outserved, outsold, outdelivered, and outacted everyone, it was him. He walked into the show being like, I am going to become legendary, and he did it. He's an icon now. I really think that his arc as a character is the most interesting, is the most compelling after Sansa. Sansa remains my number 1. But, like, his arc is so interesting and compelling and fascinating to me. And there's so much... He has actual meat that we can dig into, right? We can dig into his inferiority complex, his issues with his dad, his issues with his siblings. He has lore. He has lore that I'm actually willing to dissect. And that is true for, like, 3 other people in this video, and that is it. This video took a lot longer than I wanted it to. But I'm done. I did it. I do have more to say about Game of Thrones. I really do. I really might make a deep dive about it. At least about, like, season 1. Because I don't remember, like, 60% of it at this point. I might have to watch the show again. Which is not going to be fun. Because I didn't like it very much the first time. But I might have to. I feel like it's made me such a unique brand of crazy. Because there are other shows that, like, I finished and I've had to sit with. And I sit with them and I think about the parts that I loved, right? Like, okay, Pose. I watched Pose. And I can tell you my favorite season Pose. Unironically, my favorite scene of Pose, I can tell you right now, is when they started playing Private Dancer by Tina Turner and Elektra goes on to do sex work again. That was my favorite scene of Pose. Without a doubt. There were some other great ones, right? Like, I've been sitting with Pose, and I've been like, I love Pose. And now I'm sitting with Game of Thrones, and I'm just sitting here like, what the fuck was that? What the fuck was any of that? What happened in this show? And how can I enter a place where, like, I understand it in a way that at least gives me some sense of closure? Because I'm never there. But until I am there, until I do decide to cave and make a deep dive about this show, that's gonna be an even longer video than this one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sitting through my ranting for what's probably gonna be, like, 30 minutes by the time I'm done editing. But, like, thank you. You can like and subscribe if you want to, or don't. To be fair, I don't typically discuss Game of Thrones. So, like, if you're into the Game of Thrones content, find someone else. I don't know who's still talking about Game of Thrones. I don't. But I'm sure someone out there is, so go find them. But you can like and subscribe to me if you would so choose. Or you can not, because that will be fine either way. You can also comment whatever you want. I will put a playlist that has all my other, like, character rankings. I've done it for a couple shows. I have done season 1 of Pose, some Lost. I did The Diplomat, I'm pretty sure. I've done a couple shows. So I'll put it all down there. You can check it out if you so choose. You do not have to. And yeah, thank you again for watching.